It all started on a quiet Saturday morning when I walked out to my driveway and saw something that instantly made my stomach drop. My Tesla's tires were completely slashed. At first, I thought it had to be some random act of vandalism, maybe kids messing around or someone targeting luxury cars. But what I didn't expect was to find out that the people behind it weren't strangers at all. They were pretending to be part of a local HOA security team. Here's the twist. We don't even have an HOA. These guys showed up wearing cheap security gear, flashing fake badges, and telling neighbors they were cracking down on rule breakers. Turns out I was on their list for parking too close to the sidewalk. What they didn't know? I'm a state trooper. I kept quiet at first, just watching, documenting, and listening. Something felt off, and I wanted to get the full picture before making a move. These guys were bold, walking around like they ran the place, even giving people tickets printed from a home computer. But messing with my car? That was a step too far. Still, I didn't blow my cover just yet. That day kicked off a wild ride involving hidden cameras, late-night stakeouts, and one seriously awkward confrontation. But before I could make my move, something happened that changed the whole game. And it made me realize they might not have been acting alone. Stick around, this story's just getting started. So, after realizing these fake HOA cops had targeted me, I started digging deeper. I asked around the neighborhood, casually at first, just to see if anyone else had weird run-ins with them. Turns out, a few folks had been cited for silly things. One for having a garden hose out, another for leaving their trash can on the curb a little too long. All of the violations came with warnings typed on the same sketchy-looking paper, no logos, just vague threats about fines and escalated enforcement. It was all completely made up, but it had been going on for weeks, and no one questioned it. That's when I realized this wasn't some random prank. These guys had a routine. Same time every weekend, same route, same act. Two of them would walk around while a third stayed in the car, watching. They wore matching polos with a made-up security company name stitched on, something that didn't even come up in a Google search. But they acted so official, most people didn't bother to challenge them. I started documenting everything. License, plates, times, photos, whatever I could gather without tipping them off. But things took a darker turn when I noticed they weren't just handing out fake tickets anymore. They started going through people's mailboxes, peeking through windows, even walking into backyards like they had the right. And then one night, I caught them doing something that made me stop cold. Something that told me this wasn't just about fake rules anymore. That night, I watched from my upstairs window as two of the fake HOA officers walked up to a neighbor's house. They didn't knock. One of them pulled out a flashlight and started looking through the side windows, while the other quietly opened the gate to the backyard. It wasn't just sketchy anymore. It felt like they were casing the place. I grabbed my phone, hit record, and stayed low. The worst part? My neighbor was out of town for the weekend. No lights, no cars, no one home. These guys knew it. Around the same time, I got a text from another neighbor, someone I'd quietly looped in after learning their mailbox had been tampered with. They'd just seen the same car parked near their driveway, engine running, lights off. The pieces started fitting together. This wasn't just about pretending to be HOA security. This was organized, planned, and whoever they were getting bolder. I started to suspect there was more to this than just these three guys. Maybe someone local was feeding them info. Who was home, who wasn't. Which houses had cameras, which didn't. One of the officers even referred to a neighbor by name during a fake citation, which made no sense unless they knew more than they were letting on. That's when I started reviewing my own footage and noticed one of them had walked past my Tesla weeks before, taking pictures of it. That was way before the tires ever got slashed. This was personal. At this point, I knew I had to take things up a notch. I set up a motion-activated camera near my driveway, angled toward the street and partially hidden behind a bush. I also borrowed a second cam from a buddy and placed it facing the front yard, just to catch a wider angle. I kept everything quiet. Still no confrontation, no tip-off. I wanted to catch them in the act, and I had a gut feeling something big was coming soon. Then, on a cloudy Thursday night, around 11:30 p.m., I saw their car creep down the street again. Lights off, engine barely making a sound. They parked a few houses down and sat there for almost 15 minutes. I watched through the blinds, heart pounding. Finally, two of them got out and started walking toward my property. One of them had what looked like a crowbar in his hand. The other was carrying a flashlight wrapped in something dark, maybe to dim the beam. They weren't pretending to be HOA this time. There were no badges, no uniforms, just two guys moving like they'd done this before. I clicked record on my phone just as one of them ducked into my side yard. I stayed hidden, watching them disappear into the shadows. My cameras were rolling, phone in hand, backup already texting me from down the block. But what they didn't know was that I wasn't alone tonight. I had help, and we were ready. The trap was finally set. Just as they moved out of sight, I got a text from my backup down the block. "There's a fourth guy, in the alley." That was the moment everything changed. I had only ever seen 3 before. A fourth meant this went deeper than I thought, and if there was one watching the back, they weren't just poking around anymore. They were planning something. My heart was racing. I quietly stepped back from the window and signaled to my off-duty buddy hiding in the garage. We were ready for this moment, but the new player threw everything off balance. From the side yard, I heard a faint metallic clink, like someone trying to open a locked gate. My dog growled from the hallway, picking up on the tension. Then came the real surprise. My security camera app sent a motion alert from the back camera. I opened the live feed and froze. There he was, the fourth guy, climbing my back fence, with something slung over his shoulder. He wasn't just a lookout. He was coming in. I had to act fast, but blowing our cover too early could ruin everything. My plan had been to catch them on camera, call it in, and let my department handle the rest. But now it felt like we were running out of time. I had neighbors asleep just feet away, no idea what was unfolding. And if these guys were willing to move this aggressively, I had to ask myself, what were they really after? Because it clearly wasn't just about my Tesla anymore. The moment the guy dropped into my backyard, everything kicked into high gear. I gave my buddy the signal, and within seconds, we both stepped out. Me from the side door, him from the garage. Badges out. Voices firm. "Hands where we can see them." The guy in the yard froze, stunned, and dropped the tool bag he was carrying. Just then, the other two bolted from the side of the house, trying to make a run for it down the street. But what they didn't know was that an unmarked unit had been quietly waiting around the corner. Lights off, engine warm. They were caught in seconds. The fourth guy, the one in the yard, turned out to be the one coordinating it all. We found maps, notes, even a list of neighborhood addresses in his bag. They weren't targeting random homes. They had a hit list. My Tesla, just the start. They were marking properties for break-ins, using the fake HOA routine to scout out houses, learn schedules, and test reactions. But here's the twist. When we ran their info, one of them popped with a familiar last name. He was the nephew of a former local security contractor who'd been dismissed years ago for misconduct. This wasn't just a petty crime ring, it was revenge. My role as a state trooper? That made me a target, not just a bystander. They thought they were running a clever scam, but in the end, they picked the wrong house and the wrong driveway. After the arrests, the investigation moved quickly. With all the video evidence, the fake tickets, and the stolen tools found in their car, the case was solid. Turns out, they had hit at least 6 other neighborhoods in the past few months, always using the same fake HOA routine: uniforms, made-up citations, and threats of fines to scare people. Most folks didn't report it, just brushed it off. That's what these guys counted on: quiet compliance. My Tesla wasn't just a random act of vandalism, it was their way of sending a message. But that backfired in a big way. What they didn't realize was how tight our neighborhood actually is. Once I started asking questions, people stepped up, shared footage, details, even casual things they remembered. That sense of community helped bring everything together, and in the end, it wasn't just about stopping a group of scammers. It was about protecting where we live. The final charges ranged from impersonating security officers to attempted burglary and criminal mischief. As for the main guy, the one tied to that old contractor, he eventually admitted he wanted to expose weak spots in law enforcement neighborhoods. Guess he didn't expect to be caught by the very people he was trying to outsmart. Now, every time I walk past my Tesla, fully repaired, I'm reminded that sometimes the best defense is being quietly prepared. And if something feels off in your neighborhood, trust your gut. Because you never know when fake HOA cops might roll up. Until they pick the wrong driveway.